Hey Oxford family, Jackson Longan here. I'm the Regional Outreach Manager for Oxford House. And about over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I think, it was brought up that there are multiple house forms being used all over the country. So variations of the original forms have been created for ease of use, for personal preference, chapters or houses, for a lot of different reasons. And we want to use the same forms across the country. So how do we do that? Well, a lot of people do not like the original forms on the national website. Some people still do use them because those are the official forms, and that's what officially Oxford House Inc. recommends that houses use. But I know not all houses are using it. So I was tasked with collecting forms from around the country. So I reached out to different areas and collected all the different reports and forms that houses use for meeting minutes and financial status report and Comptroller's report and all of those. And I found out there are multiple versions floating around. So I analyzed them for several months and put them against the original forms to see what was different and why was it different, and talked to a bunch of people and did a bunch of research. And then for the last, I'd say 6 to 8 months, I've been working on creating new forms. So I took the spirit of the original forms and some of the changes that I saw consistencies with throughout the country from the variations of forms, and created a new set of house forms. Now, these are not official. They're still under review by Oxford House Inc. I'm hoping that they will get approved. I'm hoping that they won't be changed drastically. I think if they are changed, it'll be very small things that will be changed, which I will update when that happens. So I want to unveil these new forms because I've now put them on my Google Drive, which I share with house accounts in my area. So the houses that are in Texas or Oklahoma, if I've shared the paperwork folder with you, you will see the new forms in Google Drive. And I'm open to share these with anybody who wants to use them. But please do understand that these are not the official Oxford House forms. These are forms that are still under review. So I want to show you some of the differences. There's not a whole lot of huge differences, but there are some that we need to go over. So if you use these forms, it's suggested that you have 9 binders. And I'm going to show you why. I separated a lot of the supplemental documents and paperwork that was separated into some of the house officer binders, and I just put them into a general info binder. The reason I did this was I think a lot of them got overlooked because if you were secretary, you might not even have an idea of what's in the president's folder, because why would you open up the president's folder? Even though there's very good information in there. Same with coordinator for safety, and same with Comptroller or treasurer for protecting house finances. So now there's going to be a general information folder that anybody and everybody can open and refer to. So a lot of the supplemental stuff has been moved into that. I've also created a folder for chores and safety. So this lists all of the areas of the house that would be on a chore list. I know houses are set up differently, so you may have to change some of these. So I just put some generic chore lists in there so everybody knows what's expected to do their chore. And then fire safety, and then a safety inspection checklist. So periodically, once every few months, twice a year, you want to check and inspect your house to see if there's anything that needs remodeled or repaired for safety purposes. Also, you want to put an emergency plan in there. I did not put a generic one in there because, again, every house and part of the country is different on the types of emergencies that they might face. So let's go through and look at some of the things that I put in here. All of the duties for the officer positions are going to be very consistent in their layout, and it goes down a bullet point list of what's required for that officer position. For the president, the only major change that you're going to notice is on the meeting agenda. Old business has been changed to unfinished business. This is because old business, houses were assuming that meant anything that happened last week's new business is this week's old business, that it had to be read again. Well, it doesn't. The purpose of this part of the meeting is to go over anything that was unfinished, that was not resolved, that was tabled, or we didn't come to a conclusion or make a decision on. So now instead of saying old business, we'll say unfinished business. But everything here is pretty standard to what you've probably seen in your house meetings. The member contract, I also updated. This is supplemental. So if a member is voted to be put on a contract, it must be put in the meeting minutes. You do not have to fill out this form. I know a lot of houses like to use it, but if you do choose to use this form, make sure that you're also putting the details of the contract in the meeting minutes, which is the official documentation of what happened in the meeting. But this is here for you to use in case your house wants to use it. For the secretary, the meeting minutes, I not only put a blank copy in there, but I also put an example copy. So let's look at the example and see what all has changed. It looks to be a little bit cleaner in my opinion. You have the type of meeting, the date, start time, your roll call, the tradition. It reminds you to read the entire page of the tradition from the manual, not just the actual bold print of the tradition title. Minutes of last meeting, and then I box off the different reports. So the treasurer report is boxed off. And at the end, treasurer report accepted. Once it's motioned, seconded, and passed, you can just check that off. Comptroller report is boxed off. And then on the back side, you have your chore coordinator report, housing services, unfinished business, your new business, and I also have in here on every blank copy a reminder to check vacancies, check email, and verify the voicemail's been checked, and then your adjourn time, secretary's name, and then a reminder to do how goes it. I know a lot of houses like to check in. Everybody shares on their week, how their week has gone. The binders index. So this is what all of the officer packets and the general info and the chore and safety binders will include. So as you can see, the officer binders are going to have the bare essentials for that officer position. So I've taken what used to be in a lot of these and put them into the journal info. I also separated them by master copies, which I'm suggesting you take all of the ones under master copies and you put them into plastic protective sleeves. And then your usable copies, I give you a suggestion on how many to print off. And you will separate these groups with those tab separators so that those you can flip to whatever section you need to get that report. So I do this for every officer position in the hopes that you will, once every 6 months, go and print off another 20 or 30 copies of the report so that you don't ever run out and have to be stuck with notebook paper. On the treasurer's report, I made a pretty big change to this. It's no longer a 2-page report, it's a 1-page report. I felt houses were either forgetting to print the second page or they were printing it, but it was on 2 pages and they were stapling it together and then putting it in a 3-ring binder, and that was causing a headache for the treasurer having to remove the staples to write on the report. So everything's now on 1 page. So you start with your money received, your expenses that were voted on to write checks for in the house, then your upcoming bills, and then down below you have your savings account information, your petty cash if your house chooses to use petty cash. I know a lot of them do not like to have cash in the house, but some houses do, so I kept it in there. And then you have your totals at the bottom. So this is done at the bottom for simplicity reasons so that you can start your report by reading this off so the secretary can record these totals, and then you can go on to give your details of that report. I thought that would make things easier and more smooth, the meeting run more smoothly. For the audit, here's the example of the audit. It again is a 1-page report. It's no longer a 2-page report. It gives you the instructions. You take your bank statement, information from your bank statement, record your deposits not on the statement, checks not on the statement, and then I kind of just broke down what was on the second page of the original audit and put the important stuff in there: outstanding EES, total of past due bills, and total savings account. And again, like the treasurer's report, I put the totals down here at the bottom so it's easy to read across. The bank statement balance, deposits, minus checks equals balance after audit. So one page is always better than two, I feel, especially if you can get everything on there nice and clean. Comptroller report. So on the Comptroller's report, you have your house and your member ledger. So the ES ledger for the house, this is a snapshot for 1 week. I know a lot of houses use these so that they can get totals on how much is owed to the house. So everybody's listed here. Their previous balance, their ES that's due for that week, fines or others if those are approved, receipts if they did any personal shopping for the house it was approved, and then a total due, how much they paid and the ending balance, and then a little notes section. For the individual ledger, the member ledger, this is one member of the house and it goes through several weeks, goes through 10 weeks. So it's the same columns as the house ledger, but it's going to be for one person, and then there's a notes section at the bottom. So under each week, if somebody is placed on a financial contract, or if there's something that needs to be referenced, you can make a little note. Now remember, anybody that's placed on financial contract, just because it's in here does not make it official. Again, it must be in the meeting minutes and it must be voted on. But this can help a comptroller to stay organized with where people are at financially with the house. On the coordinator, the chore list is a little bit different. I wanted to add more weeks so that you don't have to do as much printing. So there's two separate sections here, the activities, the areas that must be cleaned, and then the person assigned. When they complete it, the initial and the coordinator initials. And it also gives the week start date, so you know what week we're in. So you move through the top section and then move to the bottom section, and then it gives some information at the bottom here about rotating chores, and if you don't complete your chores there may be a fine or penalty. Of course that's voted on by the house and put in the minutes, and it includes a reminder to check and tidy up your rooms, that they could be treated as incomplete chores for messy rooms. For the Housing Services Committee representative, you've seen this before, the house tour form, the house visit form, and the presentation outline. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on those. Those weren't really changed. If you want to tour a house, you can see maybe where they need help, whether it's with their cleanliness, maybe the structure needs work, maybe their office area needs cleaned or the binders need tidied up. And then a house visit form. If you visit a house that's new or struggling, you can take notes. This will help you stay organized so that you can report back to the Housing Service Committee. And a presentations outline gives instructions on how to conduct a presentation at a treatment center. All right, the general info. I'm not going to go through all of these. Most of these everybody has seen before. One of the things I did update was the filing cabinet list. So it tells you how to stay organized within your office area with the folders in the filing cabinet. And again, these are all suggestions. Of course, if your house has found a better way that works for you, that's great. But this is just a suggestion to go by. Shopping list is a little bit different. I've updated the shopping list to include things that the house would pay for when going shopping, and tried to separate them by categories and then left another section. And it also gives a reminder to provide the receipts when you get back from shopping so that everybody can see that you did in fact get everything that was on the list. The chores and safety. So every chore area, and I know some house layouts are different, so I just did some generic chore lists that you can go off of. You can create your own, but it just gives instructions on what's expected to be cleaned in every area for a chore to be considered complete. Goes over fire safety, and then a safety inspections checklist. You will want to include an emergency plan. I didn't put one in there because different parts of the country deal with different types of emergencies. And then I made new binder covers. So each officer binder and then the general info and chores and safety have their own cover page. And they're separated by color and a little icon so that they can be distinguished from each other. I'll make it a little easier as they're stacked on the shelves. I also included spine inserts. You can print this out, cut them out, and slide them into the spine of each officer binder. So that is the forms that took me months and months to complete. I hope that everybody gives them a shot and remains open-minded and tests them out and see if they like them. If you have any feedback or have any questions, or you see something on there that just doesn't make sense or you think is wrong, then reach out to me. Let me know. I'd be very interested to hear any and all feedback, positive or negative. I welcome all constructive criticism. I can share these with your personal email, with your house email, however you need them sent to you. I'd be happy to share them on Google Drive. And I'm going to keep pushing to get these forms adopted as the official forms, so they'll make it on the national website. We'll see how that goes. I'll keep everybody updated on that. So that's kind of a run through of the new house forms. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope to see you soon.